The street shimmered with late summer heat and the smell of asphalt. Marcus Hale stood at the crosswalk, tailored suit catching the afternoon light, phone buzzing with unread messages from City Hall. He was due to give a speech in 20 minutes, a talk on police reform. Of all things, a patrol car rolled up fast, siren cutting out mid-wail. Officer Trent Riker stepped out, sunglasses reflecting Marcus's face back at him. "Step back from the curb," Riker said, hand already resting on his holster. Marcus blinked. "I'm waiting for the light." Riker moved closer. "You talking back, son?" The air went thin. Pedestrians slowed, a few raising phones. Marcus's voice stayed level. "I said I'm waiting." "You're out of line." The officer's jaw tightened. "Out of line? You people always—" He shoved Marcus hard, sending him stumbling off the curb. Tires screeched. A bus horn split the air as Marcus caught himself inches from the street. Gasps. Someone shouted. Cameras flashed. Marcus straightened, heart hammering. He fixed his gaze on the officer, a cold, unflinching, "Do you know who I am?" Riker sneered. "Another loudmouth who doesn't know his place." Then the dispatcher's voice cracked through his radio. "All units, stand by. Mayor Hale en route to Civic Plaza for press conference. Repeat, Mayor Hale en route." Riker froze. The crowd didn't. Phones recorded. Murmurs rose like a tide. Marcus didn't move. Sweat slid down his temple. The light changed to green. For one long, brutal second, nobody breathed, and then the mayor smiled. Not kindly. Not forgivingly. Just a small, knowing curve that said the world had just shifted. The bus roared past, and the officer finally realized what he'd done. Marble floor, flashbulbs, the smell of coffee and polished brass. Dr. Amara Lewis stood motionless as Officer Daniel Cregan's hand gripped her elbow. Firm, impersonal, final. "Ma'am, you're obstructing a secured entry," he said, his voice carrying through the chamber like a court verdict. "I've already told you. Step back." Cameras clicked. The mayor's assistant froze mid-stride. Somewhere, a journalist whispered, "Is this really happening?" Amara lifted her ID badge. "I'm Dr. Amara Lewis, today's keynote. You can check." He didn't look. Badge could be fake. "We'll sort it out downtown." Her heart thudded, each beat louder than the last. "This is a mistake. Then it'll be cleared up." His tone was procedural, empty. But his fingers tightened, and every camera caught it. "Officer," the mayor finally said, voice thin. "Perhaps a misunderstanding." Cregan's head snapped. "Sir, please stay back. For your safety." The mayor hesitated. That pause, that cowardly half-second, sealed Amara's fate. Two more officers appeared, forming a blue wall. "I need you to turn around," Cregan ordered. "No." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Amara stood tall, spine locked. "I've done nothing wrong. You're resisting. I'm refusing humiliation." He reached for his cuffs. The sound of metal clicking against her wrist echoed like a gunshot. Her blazer sleeve bunched. The flashbulbs flared again. "Predators feeding, sir," someone shouted. "That's Dr. Lewis." Cregan smirked. Then Dr. Lewis should have known the rules, her voice cracked. "You don't even see me, do you?" "Ma'am," he said low, "I see a disturbance." The crowd shifted, phones raised. Each lens turned truth into spectacle. Somewhere a woman sobbed. Amara's vision tunneled. Marble, light, noise folding inward. She remembered her last lecture in Geneva, her words about justice, accountability, moral courage. How quickly those ideals shattered against a badge. "Walk," Cregan said. She didn't move. Two officers flanked her, guiding her toward the exit as the room dissolved into murmurs and flash photography. "Unbelievable," someone muttered. "Maybe it's a setup," another replied. The hallway air was colder. Her heels struck the floor like gavel blows. A camera followed, live streaming humiliation to millions. Cregan leaned closer. "You people always think you're above the rules." She turned her head sharply, eyes locked on him. "And you always prove mine right." For a fraction of a second, something flickered across his face. Fear, maybe. Then the mask returned. Outside, sirens wailed faintly. A drone hovered above the courthouse steps. "Officer," a reporter called. "Do you know who she is?" No comment. "Dr. Lewis, any statement?" Amara's throat burned. She said nothing. Not yet. They pushed her into the cruiser. Door slammed. Glass separated her from the noise. Through the tinted window, she saw the mayor still standing at the podium. Silent, watching, complicit. Inside the car, Cregan adjusted his radio. Dispatch 1015 female suspect in custody. Suspect. The word hit like a stone. Her reflection looked back at her. Cuffs gleaming. Eyes hard. A Nobel laureate reduced to a mugshot in real time. And as the engine roared, Amara realized something cruelly simple. They hadn't just silenced her speech. They'd rewritten who she was before she could even speak. The air in the precinct basement was thick, disinfectant, sweat and the faint metallic tang of fear. Dr. Amara Lewis sat on a steel bench, wrists raw from the cuffs. The walls were pale green, the color of denial disguised as calm. Across the room, 2 officers laughed. VIP treatment today, one said. Maybe she'll autograph my ticket, the other snorted. Nobel Prize for what again? Running her mouth. Their laughter echoed sharp and deliberate. Amara didn't move. Her back remained straight, her eyes fixed on the concrete floor, the way she'd learned to do during diplomatic summits. Wait, observe, absorb, strike later. Her throat was dry. They hadn't given her water. Her bag, her phone, her dignity, all cataloged somewhere upstairs as evidence. The door buzzed. A young officer stepped in, short, dark-haired, Latina, nervous. Her badge read S. Ortiz. She avoided eye contact with the men, crossing the cell quietly. Dr. Lewis, she whispered, voice low. I saw the news feed. Amara looked up. Ortiz's hands trembled slightly as she slid a small cup of water through the bars. Thank you, Amara said. Her voice was measured, deliberate. Every syllable carried restraint like armor. Ortiz hesitated. They said you were resisting. Amara smiled, brittle. Sometimes standing still looks like resistance. Ortiz flinched. Her eyes darted to the security camera. I shouldn't even be talking. Then don't, Amara said gently. Not if it'll cost you. Silence hung heavy. Then the older officer, Jenkins, called from the desk. Ortiz, you writing a memoir in there? She stepped back, whispering fast. They're saying the chief's coming down. Media's blowing up. Just be careful what you say. Amara's gaze didn't waver. They'll twist silence too. Ortiz hesitated, then left. The door slammed, locking the air back into stillness. Minutes and/or hours crawled by. Amara tried to measure time by the flicker of the fluorescent bulb overhead, but it was as unreliable as justice itself. Finally, Cregan entered. Same crisp uniform, same resting smugness. His radio crackled faintly with dispatch chatter. Well, he said, you've got the whole city talking. Amara didn't respond. He leaned against the bars, casual. Never seen so many hashtags over a simple detainment. You call public humiliation simple? I call it protocol. She met his eyes. Protocol's a convenient word for prejudice. Cregan's mouth tightened. Watch it. You're not in front of a camera now. That's what frightens you, she said. When the cameras are watching. He stepped closer, his shadow cutting across her lap. You think you scare me because you've got fans and a medal? You're just another headline waiting to fade. Her voice dropped. And you're the reason my lectures matter. For a beat, neither spoke. The only sound was the low hum of the fluorescent light. Then, laughter again from the desk. The kind that made mockery sound official. Cregan straightened, masking irritation with authority. You'll be processed soon. Lawyer can meet you after that. He turned to leave. Amara said, You'll have to live with that footage. He stopped, half-turned. Footage? The world saw what you did, he smirked. The world sees what we let it. The door shut behind him. The cell felt smaller. Amara closed her eyes. In the darkness behind her lids, she replayed the sound of the cuffs, the flashes. The line he'd said, You people always think you're above the rules. She heard it in her father's voice, in every airport interrogation, every polite smile masking suspicion. History folded neatly into a single moment, repeated with precision across generations. A buzzer sounded. The door opened again. Ortiz hurried, pale. They're transferring you upstairs, she said. Chief wants to review the situation. Situation, Amara repeated. Never incident. Never injustice, Ortiz swallowed. It's political now. Everyone's watching. Good, Amara said, standing. Her knees ached. Let them. Ortiz hesitated. I hope you make them see. Amara looked at her, really looked. They already see. They just pretend blindness is safer. They walked the narrow corridor. Each fluorescent light hummed above them like a warning. At the end of the hall, a journalist's muffled voice leaked. Through the walls, someone, already narrating her story, Dr. Amara, Lewis remains in custody following what police describe as a routine verification. Stop. Routine, the word burned. She stepped into the next room, the glass wall gleaming. Reporters pressed outside like vultures against transparency. Cregan stood there, posture stiff now. His superior beside him, a man with a practiced politician's smile. Dr. Lewis, the chief began smoothly. There seems to have been some confusion earlier today. Confusion, she said, each syllable a blade. Yes, I'm confused why I'm still in cuffs. The chief gestured, flustered. Of course. Officer, remove those. Cregan hesitated, then complied. The metal fell away. Her skin bore its imprint. On behalf of the department, she cut him off. Don't finish that sentence. You'll only lie. The room froze. The cameras outside pressed closer. Cregan muttered under his breath. Ungrateful. Officer, the chief warned, voice sharp. But Amara heard it. So did the microphones. She straightened her blazer. Keep your apology. I'll wait for accountability. Then she turned toward the cameras, toward the world watching through the glass. Bruised wrists visible, expression carved from fury and restraint. And for the first time since the arrest, she spoke clearly, every word meant to outlast the room. Record this part too. The bulbs exploded in white light. The footage hit the internet before she left the precinct. By noon, hashtags multiplied like sparks on dry grass. Amara Lewis, cheer Grand Civic Hall, cheer justice for Dar Lewis. Her face, in the moment her wrists were cuffed, looped endlessly across news feeds, the humiliation preserved in high definition. At first, Amara refused to look. She sat in her apartment, lights off, curtains drawn, watching the faint reflection of the city in the window. But every vibration from her phone was a reminder. Her name wasn't hers anymore. It belonged to the crowd. Her manager, Talia Ung, was the first to break the silence. They're calling for a press statement, she said over speakerphone. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, everyone. I've said nothing, Amara replied. That's the problem. No, that's control. Talia sighed. Control doesn't trend, Amara. Justice does. Amara finally turned toward the window. Justice doesn't survive headlines. On the television, muted, an anchor gestured at split screens. One side, her arrest. The other, footage of her Nobel acceptance. Same blazer, same poise, same woman, but two worlds apart. The caption read, "How could this happen?" A knock at the door. Amara hesitated, then opened it. Her brother Elijah stood there, hoodie, weary eyes, jaw tight. You good? No, he walked in, pacing. You shouldn't have gone alone. They don't see us the same way. Doesn't matter how many awards you stack, I know. Then why keep walking into their buildings? Because they're ours too, she said. He stopped, stared at her. You still believe that? Amara didn't answer. The TV volume rose, a panel discussion. A white commentator leaned forward, smiling thinly. Let's not rush to judgment. Officers make split-second decisions. Maybe she didn't identify herself clearly. Another voice, a black woman journalist, snapped back. You're suggesting a Nobel laureate forgot her name? The panel broke into crosstalk chaos noise. Elijah threw the remote. They'll twist everything. Talia's voice returned on speaker. Press wants a live statement tonight. Just 5 minutes. We control the narrative. Amara rubbed her temples. Control the narrative, she repeated. That's what he thought he was doing, silence. Then what do you want to do? Talia asked softly. Amara looked at her bruised wrists. I want to make them listen without giving them what they expect. By evening, the police department released a statement. We are reviewing an incident involving Dr. Amara Lewis. Officer Daniel Cregan has been placed on temporary administrative leave pending investigation. Temporary, Elijah muttered. Means nothing. The news cycle ate it whole. Commentators dissected tone, posture, race. Memes appeared, and some mocking, some outraged, some patronizingly inspirational. A late-night host joked, guess even Nobel winners have to show ID now. Laughter followed. Amara felt her stomach twist. Her mother called from Atlanta. Baby, you don't have to speak. Let it fade. Fade. You've done enough for this world. I haven't done nearly enough. Her mother's voice cracked. You shouldn't have to keep proving you belong. I don't do it for them, Amara said. I do it so they can't say no one did. 2 days later, a journalist named Ria Ahmed arrived. Sharp eyes, calm voice, reputation for fairness. I want to do this right, Ria said, setting her recorder down. Not sensational. Not victim narrative, truth. Amara studied her. Truth costs. So does silence. They sat by the window, city noise humming beneath them. Ria began softly. What did you feel when he said, you people always think you're above the rules? Amara exhaled slowly. I felt history. Every border agent, every security line, every random check. It was all in that sentence. Ria nodded. And afterward? Nothing. That's the part no one understands. You don't feel anger right away. You feel subtraction, like something small has been stolen and you can't prove it. Ria's pen paused. You think he knew who you were? He didn't care who I was. He knew what I was. Later that night, the interview excerpt aired. Sometimes standing still looks like resistance, Dr. Lewis said. That line spread faster than any headline. Protesters printed it on signs. Students quoted it in rallies. But with every retweet, meaning shifted, twisted, simplified, commodified. Talia called again. You've started a movement, Amara frowned. They've started noise. There's a difference? Yes, she said. Noise fades when the next scandal drops. Justice doesn't trend. Meanwhile, Officer Cregan sat at home in his kitchen watching the same footage. His lawyer spoke through Bluetooth, calm and calculated. We'll claim procedural compliance, the lawyer said. No racial intent. You followed training. Training didn't tell me to cuff her in front of the mayor, Cregan muttered. Then we emphasize confusion, miscommunication. She's turning the city against me. His wife entered, holding a newspaper. They already are. He snatched it. The front page showed his photo side by side with Amara's, the officer and the laureate. Cregan's jaw clenched. She's not destroying my career over one bad day, his wife said quietly. Maybe it's not just one day. He looked at her, something dangerous behind his eyes. You think I'm the villain? I think, she said, stepping back, you finally met someone who wouldn't flinch. Midnight, Amara sat alone again. The city lights pulsed like nerves below her window. She opened her laptop. Hundreds of unread messages, invitations, demands, opinions. Everyone wanted a quote. Her hand hovered over the keyboard. Then she typed slowly, deliberately. This isn't about one officer. It's about every silence that lets him exist. She hit send. The post went viral in minutes. Her phone buzzed, nonstop. Supporters, trolls, politicians pretending empathy. But underneath it all, the sound of her own heartbeat steady, unbroken. She whispered to herself, they wanted to silence me. Instead, they amplified me, and then, after a pause, softer, almost like a confession, but at what cost? Outside, the city glowed. Protesters chanted her name. News anchors speculated outcomes. The world moved fast, hungry for resolution. But Amara knew the truth. This wasn't the climax. It was only the echo before the next blow. The studio lights burned white-hot, bleaching the edges of everything, the chairs, the desk. The smile of the host, Dr. Amara Lewis, sat across from him, back straight, palms folded on her lap. The makeup team had softened the bruises on her wrists, but they couldn't erase the weight in her eyes. 3, 2, 1, the red light blinked on. Good evening, the host began smoothly. Tonight we're joined by Dr. Amara Lewis, Nobel Peace Prize winner, activist, and recently the subject of a nationwide controversy. Controversy. The word slid like oil. He turned to her, smiled tight. Dr. Lewis, thank you for joining us. I know it's been a difficult week. I'm not here to discuss difficulty, she said. I'm here to discuss accountability. He chuckled lightly, the kind that signals control. Of course. Let's begin there. Some have described what happened as a misunderstanding, an unfortunate clash between protocol and miscommunication. Do you accept that explanation? Amara's gaze didn't shift. A misunderstanding ends when the truth appears. This one survived it. The audience stirred, a soft rustle of discomfort. The host leaned forward, voice smooth. But you can understand, can't you, how an officer might act cautiously given the security risks? Security risk? She cut in. I was holding a folder, not a weapon. My name was printed on the event banners behind him. He blinked. You're saying the officer's actions were racially motivated? I'm saying his actions were racially conditioned, Amara replied. Motivation implies thought. This was reflex, the kind that comes from centuries of permission. The studio air thickened. The host forced a laugh, pivoting. You've inspired many with your message of peace. Some critics, though, say this rhetoric fuels division. What do you say to them? She looked directly into the camera. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of justice. Without it, silence is just comfort for the powerful. A few claps rose from the audience before the producer's hand sliced through the air. No applause cues yet. The host shifted papers, feigning composure. You've had millions of people rally behind you. Do you see yourself as a symbol now? I'm not a symbol, she said quietly. I'm evidence. A long pause followed. The host hesitated, unsure whether to push or retreat. Then he smiled again, forced and bright. Evidence of what? That it doesn't matter how many medals you win or speeches you give. Some people will always see you as a threat before they see you as human. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the camera crew stopped breathing. Ria Ahmed, watching from the control room, mouthed, "Don't cut it," but the producer leaned toward her, whispering, "We'll trim that for broadcast." Ria's jaw tightened. That's the point. You trim the truth, you keep the lie alive. Back on set, the host recovered with a polite laugh. Strong words. Some might say divisive. Amara didn't blink. Truth divides comfort from conscience. Still, he pressed, surely you agree we've made progress as a society. She tilted her head slightly. Progress measured by who? The ones allowed to forget or the ones forced to remember? The man faltered, momentary but visible. He shuffled his cards. We're almost out of time, he said quickly. One final question. What do you want to happen now? For Officer Cregan? For the department? For yourself? Amara paused. She could feel the cameras closing in, the world leaning toward her silence. Finally, she spoke. I don't want revenge. I want recognition. Not for me. For every person whose story won't make it to your studio. You want justice on camera. I want it when no one's watching. The host smiled, strained. A powerful sentiment. The light blinked off. Great segment, the producer said, stepping in. We'll cut that last part down, too heavy for prime time. We'll end on her line about peace, Ria interrupted. You can't edit her out of her own truth. The producer frowned. It's television, Ria, not a sermon. But Ria had already walked off, phone in hand. She uploaded the full unedited clip to her verified channel before they could stop her. By midnight, it had millions of views. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of justice. Dr. Amara Lewis clipped, shared, remixed, subtitled in 6 languages. Amara Uncut trended globally. The studio released a clarification, claiming the full segment would air later to provide full context. But it was too late. The truth had escaped. Amara sat at home, lights off, watching the torrent unfold. Talia called again, voice electric. You broke the feed, Amara. Do you know what you just did? Yes, Amara said quietly. I stopped being polite. Outside her window, protesters held candles, chanting softly beneath her apartment. Not slogans, just her name. She closed her eyes, exhaustion heavy but steady in her chest. For the first time in days, she didn't feel small. She felt dangerous, not because of anger, but because truth, once spoken without permission, doesn't go back to sleep. Morning sunlight hit the blinds of a modest suburban kitchen, cutting neat lines across Officer Daniel Cregan's face. The coffee sat untouched. His uniform jacket hung on the back of the chair, pressed, spotless, waiting for a man whose life had already begun to unravel. Across from him sat his lawyer, Stephen Harland, voice steady, rehearsed. You're not on trial, Dan. You're managing optics. Cregan stared at his hands. Optics, that's what this is now? Harland leaned back. In the public eye? Yes, facts don't trend. Perception does. Cregan's wife, Laura, stood by the sink, arms crossed. She hadn't spoken in 20 minutes. The television behind them played a looping image of Amara's interview. Her calm, her precision, her face everywhere. Harland continued. You'll emphasize confusion. Security protocol. Say you followed procedure. Never admit intent. Cregan rubbed his temples. She's making me look like a monster. Laura spoke quietly. You cuffed her in front of cameras. He snapped his head toward her. You think I meant to? You think I woke up and said, "Today I'll arrest a celebrity"? She's not a celebrity, Laura said. She's a person you humiliated, Harland cut in smoothly. We're not debating morality here, Laura. We're building a defense. She looked at him with cold disgust. That's the problem. You all think there's a difference, Harland ignored her. The department's behind you, for now. Union reps are drafting a joint statement. You'll read it live tomorrow. Calm, remorseful, but firm. Deep regret for how it appeared, not what it was. Cregan stared at his lawyer. You want me to sound sorry for the optics, not the act. Exactly. He stood abruptly, pacing. You think she's untouchable because she's got awards? She disrespected me. By existing, Laura said sharply. By refusing orders. She refused humiliation, Laura shot back. The words hit him harder than a slap. Harlan sighed. Emotions won't help you, Dan. The narrative's already out of your hands. The only way to survive this is to appear controlled, misunderstood, not malicious. Cregan's fists clenched. I did everything by the book. Laura's voice dropped. Maybe the book's wrong. He glared at her, a long, hollow stare, and then looked back at Harland. You ever cuffed someone who looks at you like you're the whole system? No, Harland said. And that's why you need me. Later that day, in a sterile press room, the podium gleamed under harsh lights. Cameras lined the walls. Cregan stepped up, tie too tight, expression carefully composed. He read from the statement. I regret that my actions have been misinterpreted. My duty is public safety, not politics. I followed standard protocol to ensure the integrity of the event. Any implication of bias is deeply hurtful and untrue. Click, click. Cameras. Flashes. A reporter called out, Officer Cregan, if you could go back, would you do anything differently? He hesitated. His lawyer's voice echoed in his head, Stay neutral. Don't personalize. Finally, he said, I would have liked clearer communication from the event organizers. Another reporter. So, not from yourself? He stiffened. I did my job, even after learning who she was. I didn't have that information at the time. A woman's voice cut through the crowd. You did? The staff told you twice. It was Ria Ahmed. Her microphone held steady, her gaze unflinching. Cregan faltered, a flicker of panic crossing his face. I was focused on crowd control. Focused enough to ignore the truth? Ria asked. Harlan stepped forward. No further questions, but the damage had landed. That evening, the department's internal memo leaked online. A quiet, devastating document confirming that multiple witnesses had identified Amara before the arrest. The memo noted Cregan's failure to heed verification procedures. The footage resurfaced. Slow motion, frame by frame. The officer's expression under scrutiny, dissected by millions. Laura watched from the couch, silent, face pale. Cregan paced restless. They're twisting everything. No, she said. They're finally seeing it. You think I'm racist now? I think you don't ask yourself why you did it. He stopped moving. For the first time, no defense came, only breathing. Heavy, uneven, on-screen, Amara's voice replayed from her interview. This wasn't about intent. It was about permission. Laura whispered, She's talking about men like you. He turned toward her, eyes hollow. She's ending my life. No, she said softly. You ended hers in just for a few hours. The difference is she rebuilt. Can you? Outside, the protests grew louder, chants echoing through the neighborhood. Inside, the television showed his badge, his name, his department, and beneath it, one word that would haunt him now. Suspended. He sank into the chair, hands trembling. The sound of his own heartbeat louder than the crowd outside. And for the first time since the Marble Hall, Daniel Cregan understood what it meant to be seen. Not as the law, but as the lesson. The newsroom hummed like a live wire, phones ringing, cameras whirring, the smell of burnt coffee cutting through the tension. Ria Ahmed leaned over her desk, eyes fixed on a flickering thumbnail labeled Hallway Cam 07 Move. The timestamp matched the moment Amara was handcuffed. She pressed play. Static, then movement. Cregan, rigid, squared shoulders, facing Amara across the Marble Hall. Behind her, two staffers pleading, gesturing toward her ID badge. The audio was faint, but the words were there if you listened hard enough. Sir, she's the keynote speaker. Step back. This area's restricted. She's Dr. Amara Wells. Cregan's voice sharp, unyielding. Doesn't matter who she says she is. Rhea's stomach twisted. The staffer's face, a young intern, showed shock, fear, then silence. That silence had cost everything. She rewound it, played it again. The same sentence landed harder the second time. Doesn't matter who she says she is, it wasn't just a mistake. It was contempt. Rhea exhaled slowly, clicked save copy, and leaned back in her chair. Got you, she whispered. That night, Amara sat in her apartment surrounded by stacks of letters and flowers she hadn't asked for. Sympathy and outrage had their own noise, and it was deafening. The news cycle called her the woman who humbled power, as if her pain were a performance. Her phone buzzed, Rhea's name flashing. Tell me it's good news, Amara said. Voice weary, you'll want to see this yourself. Anonymous drop, time-stamped, unedited. Amara's pulse spiked. What is it? Proof. And it's ugly. Minutes later, they sat together in Rhea's office, blinds drawn, screen glowing. Rhea hit play. The footage ran again, the dialogue raw, uncut. Amara didn't blink. Her eyes tracked every gesture, every muscle in Cregan's face. When it ended, silence filled the room. Rhea finally said, If this goes public, the department's done. So is he? Amara looked down. He'll blame training, oversight, confusion. They always do, Rhea nodded. But this shows choice. Amara's voice was steady but low. I don't want spectacle, Rhea, I want truth. I want a record that doesn't get erased. Rhea studied her. Then you'll need to speak again. Not in anger, in clarity. Let the footage talk and you frame it. Amara hesitated. You think people still listen? They're listening now, Rhea said. But for the first time, it's not out of pity. It's because you made them look. By morning, the footage leaked. No network aired it first. It spread through phones, feeds, whispers. The sentence repeated everywhere like a curse burned into digital stone. Doesn't matter who she says she is, the internet lit up. Comment sections exploded. Hashtags burned across platforms. Doors who she is trended for 2 straight days. Under pressure, the police department issued a brief, panicked statement. The leaked footage is currently under review. Officer Cregan remains suspended pending investigation, but it was too late. The footage had done what the press couldn't. It told the truth without commentary. Cregan watched it play on his television, the volume muted, but the words still loud in his head. Every replay stripped another layer off his defenses. Laura sat across the room, her eyes tired. No longer angry, I'd just emptied. You said they didn't tell you who she was, she murmured. He didn't answer. You said it was confusion. Still nothing. Finally, she whispered. So that's who you are when you think no one's watching. He turned toward her, desperate. You think I'm evil? I think you stopped seeing people a long time ago. He sank into the couch, face buried in his hands. Outside, a crowd gathered again. Protesters held signs, not screaming this time, but chanting in a slow, haunting rhythm. Doesn't matter who she says she is. Doesn't matter who she says she is. Each echo pressed against his windows like waves. In the studio across town, Rhea prepared the evening broadcast. We're not airing this for outrage, she told her team. We're airing it for record, for every person who's been told they don't belong where they stand. When the red light blinked on, she began. Tonight, we show unedited footage of an arrest that has sparked national conversation about authority, race, and recognition. What happens when identity itself becomes subject to permission? The video rolled. Millions watched. Silence followed. Later, in a dim hotel conference room, Amara faced a circle of reporters. No lights, no spectacle, and just her voice. I was told my name didn't matter, she said quietly, that my achievements couldn't be real, that my presence was a threat. But this isn't about one officer or one humiliation. It's about the structure that lets doubt speak louder than dignity. A reporter asked, Dr. Wells, what do you want now? She looked at the cameras. Accountability. Not vengeance, her eyes softened. And for every young woman who saw that video, to know she doesn't need to prove who she is to be treated as human. That night, Rhea watched the press replay from her car, rain smearing the windshield. She whispered into the dark, That's the line they'll remember. Her phone buzzed. A message from an anonymous number. You think you've won, but power doesn't break that easily. No signature. No ID. Rhea deleted it. She'd seen the bluff before. The truth was already free. Across the city, Cregan sat alone in the dark, the echo of the protest still faint through his walls. On his table lay his badge, turned upside down. He picked it up once, stared, then set it down again. The television flickered one last time. Amara's face, calm, resolute. Her final words in the clip played softly. Some lessons are learned in silence, some are carved in sight. The screen faded to black, and for the first time, Cregan understood. The story was no longer his to control. Morning news anchors spoke her name with the caution of those who knew it had become sacred. Dr. Amara Wells. Every screen, every paper, every conversation, her arrest, her speech, the footage, it was no longer a story. It was a reckoning. The city pulsed under the weight of it. Buildings wore banners quoting her words. Protest murals appeared overnight. Portraits of Amara painted on walls that once carried campaign posters. The phrase "doesn't matter who she says she is" was now graffiti in gold, bitter irony reclaimed. Amara stood at her apartment window watching a crowd form below. Some held candles. Some carried signs. A few just stood in silence. She whispered almost to herself. They shouldn't be chanting my name. They should be chanting for change. Behind her, Rhea leaned against the doorframe. They are, she said. You just gave them a name to start with, Amara turned. It's too heavy. I didn't ask for this. None of us did, Rhea said. But the world chose your moment to look. At police headquarters, silence ruled like smoke after a fire. Officer Cregan's desk sat empty, his nameplate removed. The commissioner's voice carried through the briefing room. Effective immediately, Officer Daniel Cregan is terminated from duty pending criminal review. No applause. Just the click of pens, the low murmur of reporters waiting outside the glass walls. In a back hallway, Harland, Cregan's lawyer, spoke to a department aide. You're cutting him loose to save face. You know the system taught him this. The aide replied flatly. Maybe the system's finally learning something too. Cregan stood outside the precinct, plain clothes now. He'd shaved the regulation haircut down to stubble. The press waited across the street, microphones like rifles. He didn't go near them. He turned his collar up against the wind and walked. No destination, just movement. His phone buzzed, messages, threats, sympathy, venom. He didn't read any. At an intersection, a protest blocked his way. A sea of faces. He stopped when he saw a young black boy holding a sign. We know who she is. Their eyes met for a brief second. The boy didn't recognize him, or maybe he did and chose to look past him. That mercy hurt worse than hate. Cregan turned away, heart pounding, and kept walking. In the newsroom, Rhea sat with her producer watching new footage roll in. Protests were spreading, peaceful, organized, relentless. City halls, campuses, even small-town police stations. The producer muttered, Feels different this time. It is, Rhea said. They're not just angry. They're awake. She checked her email, one from Amara. Thank you for showing truth without spectacle. Rhea smiled faintly. The kind of smile that carried exhaustion and pride in equal measure. 3 days later, Amara walked onto a stage she hadn't planned to take. The United Nations Human Rights Forum had invited her to deliver an address. The hall was full. Diplomats, students, journalists, survivors. She spoke without notes. What happened to me was not rare. It was simply seen. And visibility changes everything, not because it stops injustice, but because it denies its silence. Her tone softened. The man who arrested me wasn't born cruel. He was taught a hierarchy so subtle it wore a uniform. The tragedy is that he believed it was duty. The danger is that so many still do. The hall stayed quiet. Not out of politeness, but wait. I forgave him, she said finally. Not because forgiveness erases harm, but because holding hate is another form of captivity. And I refuse to live there. Applause rose like thunder. That night, back in her apartment, Amara sat alone. The city lights spilled through the window. Orange, soft, distant. Her reflection overlapped with the skyline. The doorbell rang. Rhea again, this time without her camera bag. I brought dinner, she said, Something normal for once. They ate in silence for a while. Then Rhea asked, "You think it's over?" Amara shook her head. "No, it's only quieter," Rhea leaned back. "You changed something, though." Amara stared at her hands. "I changed someone's illusion. The structure will take longer." Rhea nodded slowly. "Still worth it." Amara's eyes drifted toward the window. "It has to be." Across the city, Cregan watched the same broadcast. Amara's speech glowed from the small TV in a rented room. Paint peeling, blinds half broken. Her words filled the air. He was taught a hierarchy so subtle it wore a uniform. He muted the sound and stared. Her calm was unbearable, her forgiveness worse. On the desk beside him lay a folded newspaper, his own face printed beside the headline, "Officer Fired Amid Global Outcry." He picked it up, tore it in half, then in quarters. The paper fell to the floor like white ash. For the first time, he didn't curse the noise outside. He just listened. In the streets below, the chants had changed. Not fury now, but resolve. "See us, hear us. Change it." Candles flickered in a steady wind, and somewhere amid that sound, beneath the grief, the outrage, the unspoken forgiveness, a new rhythm began to form. Not of protest, but of memory refusing to fade. Amara's story had ended, but the echo it left was still speaking. Dawn broke over the capital like a slow confession, pale, honest, unignorable. The city that once looked away now stared at itself in every reflection. Bus windows, building glass, the faces of its own citizens. Something had shifted. In the university courtyard, Amara stood before a marble plaque newly unveiled. "For those told they don't belong." Her name wasn't carved into it. She'd insisted on that. Behind her, students gathered, hundreds of them young, alert, holding notebooks, not signs. It wasn't a protest this time. It was a beginning. Dean Alvarez spoke softly into the microphone. "Today we rename this hall in honor of Dr. Amara Wells, not because of what she suffered, but because of what she changed." Amara stepped forward. "Names don't erase pain," she said, "but they remind us where silence used to live." Applause restrained but deep. Across town, Rhea Ahmed sat in a courthouse hallway, notebook balanced on her knee. The hearing for State versus Cregan had drawn more cameras than she'd seen in a year. Yet the crowd outside was calm, not baying for punishment but for proof that the system could still mean something. Inside, Cregan sat alone at the defense table. The crisp uniform was gone. His lawyer, Harland, leaned in one last time. "You don't have to testify," Harland murmured. "I do," Cregan said. His voice sounded foreign, stripped of defiance. When his name was called, he rose and faced the bench. The judge's gavel tapped once. "Officer Cregan," the prosecutor began. "On the morning of the arrest, did you know Dr. Wells was the event's keynote speaker?" He hesitated. The courtroom waited. "Yes," he said finally. "I knew." Murmurs rippled through the gallery. "And you still ordered her detained?" He swallowed. "I thought she didn't belong there." The prosecutor's tone didn't rise. "Because?" "Because she didn't look like the people who usually do." Silence. No one moved. Even Harland looked away. The prosecutor stepped closer. "You understand that statement is the crime?" Cregan nodded once. "I do now." Outside, Rhea typed the quote into her notes, on her fingers shaking slightly. Not from victory, but from the raw simplicity of it. No twist, no excuse. Just the truth at last, spoken aloud. She sent the transcript to her editor with a single line. He finally said it. Hours later, when the verdict came, guilty of wrongful arrest and official misconduct, the crowd didn't cheer. They just stood, collective breath exhaled after holding too long. Justice didn't feel like triumph. It felt like weight redistributed. As Cregan was led away, he turned once toward the press seats. His eyes found Rhea. For a fleeting moment, he didn't see an enemy, only witness. That night, Amara watched the coverage alone. The newscaster's voice carried over images of courthouse steps, interviews, reflections. Her name came up again, tied to the verdict she hadn't asked for but couldn't ignore. She turned off the TV and sat in the quiet. Outside, the sky was bruised purple, clouds like healing scars. She thought of the officer, not his rage but his moment of recognition. The sentence had come, but the reckoning was larger than him. It always had been. She whispered into the stillness. Let it mean something. 2 weeks later, the Nobel Foundation released an unscheduled statement. Dr. Amara Wells will chair the Global Ethics Initiative, advancing transparency and social equity. Reporters called it redemption. She didn't. To her, it was continuation. The work she'd started long before one man's arrogance made her visible. Ria visited again. Camera left at home. They're saying you turned humiliation into history, she said. Amara half smiled. History's just repetition with better witnesses. Ria nodded. You'll still do it? Of course, even after all this? Especially after all this. At the courthouse archives, Cregan sat across from a clerk, signing the final papers of his discharge. His voice had dulled, but his eyes carried something new. Not remorse manufactured for cameras, but awareness that couldn't be unlearned. He handed back the pen. What will you do now? The clerk asked. He paused. Listen. Then he walked out. No cameras, no noise. Only the faint sound of protesters in the distance. Their chants now slower, more deliberate. Justice isn't a moment, it's maintenance. He didn't join them. But he didn't turn away either. Months later, in a packed auditorium at Harvard, Amara addressed a hall full of policy students. Everyone keeps asking how it feels to be vindicated, she said. But vindication implies someone gave me back what was taken. They didn't. They just stopped denying it existed. Laughter. Soft, uncomfortable, understanding. She looked at the audience. Young faces, curious, conflicted. You will go into systems that reward silence. Don't confuse silence with professionalism. Don't call comfort peace, her voice steadied. And if someone tells you, it doesn't matter who she says she is, remember this. That sentence is the blueprint of oppression. Burn it, applause thundered. After the event, Ria found her outside beneath an old oak. You're becoming what they fear most, Ria said. Visible, unshaken, and still kind. Amara smiled faintly. Kindness isn't forgiveness. It's survival strategy. Still, Ria said, you gave the story an ending no one expected. Amara looked out toward the campus quad where students walked freely. I didn't give it an ending, she said quietly. I gave it witnesses. That night, in a quiet part of the city, Cregan sat on a park bench. No badge, no uniform, a paper cup of coffee growing cold in his hands. 2 patrol cars passed on the street. He watched them go. Not with envy, but recognition. He looked up at the night sky and whispered words no one would ever hear. It mattered who she was. The next morning, an op-ed ran on the front page of the Tribune, The Cost of Recognition by Ria Ahmed. Systems don't change because they're guilty. They change because they're watched. Dr. Wells reminded the world that dignity is not granted, it's inherent. The question now is not whether we saw enough, but whether we'll remember. Amara clipped the article, folded it once, and placed it in her notebook. The world outside kept moving, headlines shifting, stories replaced, but somewhere in the hum of it all, a single line of truth persisted, clear and indelible. It matters who she is. It always did.